hello everyone, welcome back to Strike Point Media. Today we're diving deep into one of the most shocking developments in the ongoing Ukraine-Russia war, the growing claims that Vladimir Putin has effectively abandoned his own troops, leaving thousands stranded and exposed in what's being called Ukraine's kill zone. This isn't just a story about military movements, it's about the crumbling structure of Russia's war machine from the inside out. We'll break down how this happened, what it means for the soldiers on the ground, and why this could signal one of the darkest chapters in Russia's modern history. From the outside, what we're seeing looks like a powerful military force continuing its campaign tanks, armored vehicles, artillery, and drones, all operating in sync. But when you take a closer look at the exterior of this war effort, cracks are beginning to show. The Russian front lines are stretched thin, morale is collapsing, and the supposed coordination between divisions is falling apart. Satellite images and battlefield footage reveal destroyed convoys and abandoned fortifications, suggesting that Putin's troops have been left without proper support or reinforcements. Many of these soldiers are cut off behind enemy lines, running out of ammunition and food, waiting for orders that never come. On the exterior, the machinery of war still moves, but inside it's hollow, a massive operation losing its coherence one broken unit at a time. Inside Russia's own military structure, the situation appears even more dire. The interior of the system, the command, communication, and logistics networks is disorganized and overwhelmed. Reports from soldiers on the ground tell stories of confusion, orders changing by the hour, and commanders disappearing when things go wrong. Some units have gone days without contact from their higher-ups. Young conscripts, barely trained and lacking basic gear, are thrown into combat zones and then forgotten. The short truth is, the interior of this war machine has lost its discipline and direction. What was once a symbol of Russian strength has turned into a chaotic, disconnected system where soldiers are treated as expendable. When it comes to performance, the Russian army's once feared reputation has taken a serious hit. The performance of this campaign, measured in results, morale, and strategic gain, has been underwhelming at best and disastrous at worst. Despite months of fighting, Russia has struggled to make meaningful progress. Their offensives stall, their supply lines collapse, and their forces retreat or surrender under Ukrainian counterattacks. Ukrainian drone and artillery units have become experts at targeting Russian positions, often catching entire battalions in open fields. These are the kill zones we've been hearing about. Soldiers left in these areas describe being trapped without air cover, reinforcements, or evacuation. Many are calling it a death sentence. The Russian army's performance, once used to project power, is now exposing its vulnerabilities to the world. The so-called safety features of this operation, the measures meant to protect troops and secure supply lines, have failed entirely. In any well-organized army, safety protocols ensure communication, evacuation, and medical support for the wounded. But in this war, soldiers report being left behind if injured, medical evacuation routes cut off, and units told to hold positions at all costs, even when surrounded. Commanders sitting miles away issue orders from comfortable bunkers, while frontline troops bleed out in trenches with no backup. It's a brutal reality that goes against every military principle of soldier care and protection. Many Russian families back home are only learning about their loved ones' fates weeks later through unofficial channels or social media posts from Ukrainian sources. For those soldiers, there are no safety nets left, only survival instincts. If we look at the unique selling points of Putin's military strategy, the ones he boasted about before this war, superior technology, modernized weapons, and unbreakable discipline, they've turned into empty promises. The hyped-up Russian tanks, like the T-90M, have been destroyed in shocking numbers. Drones and electronic warfare systems that were supposed to dominate the battlefield are being jammed or destroyed by Ukrainian tech. The elite Wagner fighters who once gave Russia an edge have either turned against the Kremlin or been dissolved after their rebellion. The unity that once held the Russian military together has fractured into competing power centers, Ministry of Defense vs. private militias, generals vs. field commanders. Even Russian state media is struggling to maintain the illusion of control, as stories of surrender, mutiny, and desertion leak daily. The very selling point of Russia's military discipline and might is now its weakest link. The price of this failure, both literal and human, is staggering. Financially, Russia is bleeding resources at a rate unseen since the Soviet-Afghan War. Billions of dollars are being spent to maintain supply lines, replace destroyed equipment, and recruit more troops, often poor men from remote regions, promised money and honor but given only chaos and death. The price in human life, though, is beyond calculation. Thousands of Russian soldiers have been killed, wounded, or captured in the past few months alone. The emotional toll on families is immeasurable. Mothers and fathers receive phone calls from strangers or worse, silence. The psychological cost on surviving soldiers is turning into long-term trauma, with many describing nightmares and guilt over being ordered to abandon their comrades. The price Russia is paying for this war, both economically and morally, may be one it can never recover from. The situation on the battlefield is now a reflection of the leadership behind it. Putin's decisions have become increasingly desperate. Instead of protecting his troops, he has chosen to protect his image. He refuses to admit mistakes, even as his soldiers die in trenches with no support. Reports indicate that he has withdrawn elite units from key areas, leaving conscripts to hold the line against Ukrainian offensives. It's as if he has abandoned his own men, the very people fighting for his cause, to die in these kill zones. His priority seems to be maintaining political power at home, even if it means sacrificing thousands abroad. What's more chilling is that many Russian soldiers are now realizing this. Their loyalty, once unwavering, is cracking under the weight of betrayal. Inside Russia, voices of dissent are growing louder. Families are demanding answers. Videos of desperate soldiers pleading for supplies or evacuation have gone viral despite government efforts to censor them. These clips show men trapped in trenches, surrounded, crying for help. It's raw, it's real, and it's reshaping public opinion. Some military bloggers, once loyal to the Kremlin, are openly criticizing the leadership for turning its back on the troops. They call it a betrayal of the very men who believed in the mission. The propaganda machine is struggling to spin this collapse into victory, and that, more than anything, shows how deep the rot has gone. Meanwhile, Ukraine has taken full advantage of this chaos. Their intelligence and drone surveillance are exposing weak Russian positions. Their precision strikes are eliminating command posts, and their morale is only growing stronger. For them, these kill zones are opportunities to reclaim their land inch by inch. And with Western weapons, advanced tactics, and unwavering resolve, Ukraine is proving that strategy and heart can overcome numbers and machinery. Every abandoned Russian position becomes a symbol not just of military failure, but of moral decay. As we analyze this situation further, one thing becomes clear: Putin's war is no longer about victory. It's about survival, not for the soldiers, but for the man himself. He's fighting a political war, using lives as currency to maintain control. But history has shown time and again that when leaders abandon their troops, their empires crumble from within. The echoes of past wars, from Afghanistan to Chechnya, are repeating themselves. Only this time the scale is global and the consequences are far greater. In conclusion, the story of Putin abandoning his troops in Ukraine's kill zone is not just a tactical failure, it's a moral collapse. The exterior image of Russian power has been shattered. The interior command is chaotic and disconnected. The performance of the army has fallen to historic lows. The safety features, the systems meant to protect and sustain the fighting force, have broken down entirely. The unique selling points that once defined Russian military superiority have turned into global embarrassment. The price, both in human lives and international credibility, is devastating. What's left is a sobering lesson for the world. Strength built on fear and deception cannot last. No amount of propaganda can cover the truth when soldiers themselves start to speak. Putin may try to rewrite this narrative, but the images of abandoned troops, destroyed equipment, and broken families will haunt Russia for years to come. And as this war grinds on, one thing becomes undeniable: the men who were left to die in Ukraine's kill zones were not defeated by the enemy. They were defeated by their own leaders' betrayal. Thank you for watching Strike Point Media. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories shaping our world. Stay sharp, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next one.
All hope is lost. That's the message coming from the Russian soldiers who are currently fighting against Ukraine in the Yunakiivka pocket in Ukraine's Sumy Oblast. Those troops are starving. They're running out of supplies and equipment. Nothing they can do can save them from the Ukrainian onslaught. And Vladimir Putin doesn't care. Far from doing whatever he can to save his soldiers in Sumy, Putin has abandoned his own troops. Surrounded and doomed, those soldiers have been left to die in Ukraine's kill zone. That's according to Euromaidan Press, which published a report on October 12 that covers what's happening in Yunakiivka and how Putin, along with the rest of the Russians' military top brass, is doing nothing to stop it. The outlet reports that Ukraine has come up with a clever strategy to deal with the Russian forces that have been attempting to create a buffer zone within Sumy since the beginning of summer. Rather than taking on those Russian forces head-on, Ukraine is instead creating fire pockets. These pockets are essentially kill zones, though not in the way one might expect. Yunakiivka has become another of those fire pockets, as Ukraine has encircled the Russian soldiers in that village. It might seem logical that Ukraine would assault Russia's soldiers once the village was encircled. However, that isn't what it's doing. Instead, Euromaidan Press reports, Ukraine is playing the long game by cutting off all supply routes into Yunakiivka so Russia can do nothing to save the soldiers it sent into the village. Not that it would, but that point will be addressed later in the video. Ukraine's tactic seems to be to drive the encircled Russia soldiers crazy, with a strategy that's leading to Russian soldiers killing their own comrades for attempting to surrender. Desperation is now king in Yunakiivka. It's all thanks to a simple formula, as Euromaidan Press reports. Take the Russian ground lines of communication under fire control, isolate and starve the Russians in Yunakiivka, and then turn the trap into a kill zone without any chances of evacuation or rotation. It's that formula, and it's working like a dream. Ukraine is playing on a major fault in the Russian military's hierarchy. Surrendering any territory that's been captured is a no-go for Russia's commanders, not least because they'd have to explain what happened to Putin. So, trapped in Ukraine's Yunakiivka kill zone, Russia's commanders won't allow their soldiers to surrender. They should die instead, just as they're doing. Choking off Russian supply lines is a common Ukrainian tactic, and it's been using that tactic a lot in Sumy. On August 25, for example, Ukraine ambushed the convoy carrying Russian Lieutenant General Esadullah Abachev. The general was en route to Sumy to help organize the already failing summer offensive in that region, only for him to be maimed in a Ukrainian drone attack. Interestingly, Ukraine preceded that strike by destroying a bridge close to Yunakiivka. That suggests what is now seen in the village is the result of several weeks of hard work by Ukraine's forces to isolate Russia's soldiers. The Guardian adds that Ukraine has also conducted strikes against several trains that were supposed to provide supplies to Russian troops operating in Sumy, again showcasing a smart strategy of cutting Russia's forces off from what they need to launch assaults. This systematic destruction of supply lines is working wonders in Sumy. Now, Russia's soldiers in Yunakiivka are paying the price. It was mentioned earlier that Ukraine has turned that village into a kill zone, though not the type that one might expect. The country has talked about drone-based kill zones in the past, with the theory being that it uses multiple layers of drones to create no man's lands across the front lines. In September, RBC Ukraine reported that Ukraine was planning to create an 18.6-mile kill zone across the front, for instance. Loaded with drones, that kill zone would serve both as an early warning system for Ukraine's defenders and a means to